What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I know it's been a little minute since you guys have last heard my voice. I'm in college. I've been really busy with final exams and assignments with the semester about to end. I'm going to try to record as much content as I can, but I should be returning back home for the summer within the next couple of weeks, so I should be uploading more content around the end of this month, around draft time. But I have a really exciting episode for you guys. Want to talk about why the Ravens had to overpay for Odell Beckham services. Yeah, Odell Beckham, we know that he isn't what he used to be when he first came into the league with the Giants, but I still think he can be a pretty good addition for the Baltimore Ravens offense. They don't really attract a lot of big-name wide receivers. Jeff Okudah is getting a fresh start. The Detroit Lions have traded him to the Atlanta Falcons in exchange for a fifth-round selection. Going to be giving my thoughts on that trade. Before we get into it, if this is your first time listening to the JT Sports Podcast, welcome. I appreciate you for tuning in. Make sure that you check out the JT Sports Podcast, available on all podcasting platforms: Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast from. You can find the JT Sports Podcast. The Ravens signed Odell Beckham Jr. to a one-year deal worth $15 million, $13.8 million guaranteed. They had to overpay for OBJ. Okay, for those of you guys who have been following the Ravens franchise for over the last couple of decades, you would know that they don't really attract a lot of big names in free agency. This was before they got Lamar Jackson. Back when they were winning Super Bowls with Joe Flacco, they never really had a star-studded group of wide receivers. The best receivers that the Ravens have had in recent memory have all been up there in age. Anquan Bolden, Steve Smith Sr., when they signed him in free agency. The Ravens always seem to get the best out of receivers who are up there in age. Odell Beckham Jr., yeah, he probably isn't what he used to be when he first came into the league with the New York Giants, and he had the one-hand catch that pretty much put him on the map and propelled him to superstardom. But when Odell Beckham is healthy, he's still one of the best receivers in the league. I kind of hate how people kind of look down on Odell Beckham, trying to call him washed. OBJ is far from washed, people. Super Bowl 56 was not too long ago. Before he went down with that ACL injury, he had 2 receptions for 52 receiving yards and the touchdown. He was about to go off, and he most likely could have been on pace for winning Super Bowl MVP in that game. OBJ going to the Baltimore Ravens, I think, is a pretty good signing. Did they overpay for him? Yes, they did, but they had to. It's not like wide receivers are dying to want to play for the Ravens. It's not really because of Lamar Jackson. I don't really even think it's because of the structure of Baltimore's offense. I really just think that the Ravens are one of those franchises who looks at the receiver position and they don't really value it as much as compared to other teams. OBJ, with him going to the Baltimore Ravens, I think is going to entice Lamar Jackson to stay, or at least return back to the negotiating table with the Ravens. Apparently, Odell Beckham, when he agreed to the deal with Baltimore, he came to the understanding that Lamar Jackson was going to be the guy under center this season, throwing him passes. Him and Lamar Jackson were on FaceTime. Lamar posted the screenshot on his Instagram page. And right after that, they were seen in the club down in South Beach celebrating the signing of OBJ, joining forces with Lamar. So I'm expecting Lamar Jackson to be throwing passes to Odell Beckham Jr. this season. And when you look at what OBJ brings to the table, he's still one of the best route runners in the league. He still is really explosive after the catch. And I'm really excited just thinking of the possibilities for what Odell Beckham Jr. could do in this offense with new offensive coordinator Todd Monken. You may not know this, but Greg Roman is no longer the offensive coordinator of the Baltimore Ravens. They hired offensive coordinator Todd Monken, who spent the last couple of seasons at the University of Georgia. For those of you guys who pay attention to college football, you would know that Todd Monken helped lead the Georgia Bulldogs to 2 back-to-back national titles. And he did this with Stetson Bennett as his quarterback. And if you don't know who Stetson Bennett is, it doesn't really matter. Just know that Todd Monken's offense was cooking with a walk-on quarterback. Todd Monken also has been pretty successful calling plays as an offensive coordinator at the NFL level. He called plays for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers during Derek Cutter's final season, and their offense was really good. Now, he was the OC of the Cleveland Browns back in 2019, the lone year when they had Freddie Kitchens, but he didn't call the plays that year. Freddie Kitchens did. Todd Monken, now that he has OBJ, you're going to be pairing him up with Rashad Bateman, Mark Andrews. This is most definitely a better group of receivers that Odell Beckham, that Lamar Jackson is going to be throwing the football to with the addition of Odell. Odell, he isn't going to be asked to be the number one target in this offense. You want to know why? Because Mark Andrews is going to be the number one option in this offense. You're going to have him. You're going to have Rashad Bateman. Hopefully, he can stay healthy and have a breakout season. He did show a couple of flashes of greatness last season at times, but I just think with Rashad Bateman, if he can put it all together, he can stay healthy and just stay on the field. I think he can be a pretty good wideout for the Ravens this season. Is he going to be that superstar wideout that the Ravens were hoping for when they first drafted him out of Minnesota? I kind of doubt it, but I still think he can be a pretty productive wide receiver. You're going to have Odell, who not only is going to take some of the pressure off of Rashad Bateman, but he also could be a really good mentor to a young guy like Rashad Bateman, who's still trying to find himself in the league, making that transition from college ball to the pros. Odell Beckham, was he overpaid by the Baltimore Ravens front office? Yes, he was. But I definitely think that this was a signing that was necessary. The Ravens had to dish out the money that they did to sign a guy like Odell Beckham. It's not like they have had a great history of bringing in elite wide receivers in the past. As a matter of fact, I think that it pretty much is a large reason why the Ravens continue to not really put a lot of emphasis at the wideout position, because they've been so successful without having top-level wide receiver play. Yes, this was an overpay, but I definitely think that this was a necessary one, and I do think that this move will pay out. The only question that we really have about Odell Beckham, which makes this signing a risk for the Ravens, is his durability concerns. Odell Beckham, we know that he struggled to stay on the field with the Browns. He struggled to stay on the field when he was with the Rams, getting injured in the Super Bowl. But he did sit out all of last season, continuing to rehab from that ACL injury. With him having a full year to rehab and rest and recuperate, I think that Odell Beckham should be able to stay healthy for at least 12 to 13 games of the Baltimore Ravens upcoming season. And if you can keep him healthy for the majority of the year, I definitely think that this Ravens offense is going to see a tremendous improvement in the passing game compared to what they've seen from years prior. And without a doubt, we know that Lamar Jackson is happy about this. He's been out with Odell. I think that this signing is going to pay off for the Baltimore Ravens. We seem to forget that the Ravens are one of the most well-ran organizations in the NFL. Have they mishandled this Lamar Jackson contract situation? Yes, they have. But let's not act like the Ravens just are a not well-ran organization and they just make bad decision after bad decision. Most of the decisions that the Ravens make pay off the majority of the time. Jeff Okudah is getting a fresh start. The Detroit Lions are trading away their third pick from the 2020 NFL Draft to the Atlanta Falcons in exchange for the Falcons' fifth-round pick in the upcoming 2023 NFL Draft. If you're a Falcons fan and you're wondering, is Jeff Okudah good? Is he bad? What are the Falcons getting? I honestly don't know. Last season, Jeff Okudah was up and down for the Detroit Lions. He had some good games, some okay games, and some really bad games. And this pretty much is a prove-it year for Jeff Okudah, because most likely the Falcons are probably not going to pick up his fifth-year option. So if he wants to remain in the A, he's going to have to ball out. And he's going to have a pretty good opportunity to do so. He's going to have the chance of playing alongside of A.J. Terrell, who is one of the best cornerbacks in the game right now. The Atlanta Falcons brought in a new defensive coordinator off the New Orleans Saints staff. And Jeff Okudah, like I said earlier, last season for Detroit, he wasn't bad. He wasn't good. He was averaged, in my opinion. Okay, he had some good games. He had a really good performance against Justin Jefferson. And then he had some games where he was just getting cooked and routed up. The Atlanta Falcons, for them, this is a low-risk, high-reward move. You only give up a fifth-round pick for him. Some Lions fans feel like Brad Holmes could have gotten a little bit more in return for him, maybe a third-round pick. But I don't really think you were going to get a third-round pick for Jeff Okudah at this stage of his career. He kind of is leaning more towards being a bust. Even though he's not a bad player per se, but he hasn't lived up to the level of expectations when the Detroit Lions took him third overall. Some people may say Detroit should have been a little bit more patient. I mean, you got to understand that Brad Holmes wasn't the guy who drafted Jeff Okudah. It was Bob Quinn, the previous GM, who got fired right when they got rid of Matt Patricia. So when you have a guy who kind of is still trying to struggle to find footing in the league, and you have a new GM, you're not going to have a lot of patience. And last year was the make or break year for Jeff Okudah when it came to his future in Detroit. In free agency, they brought in Cam Sutton, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Emmanuel Mosley. So it was really hard to find the spot for Jeff Okudah on this Lions defense for the upcoming season. So either he was going to get traded or he was going to get moved to safety, which I also think could be in the cards for him if he doesn't work out at cornerback for the Falcons. I think that Jeff Okudah would be a really good safety. Me and Luke G have been saying this for a couple of years now, that Jeff Okudah would make a really good safety in the NFL if given the opportunity. So if he doesn't work out at cornerback for the Falcons, which right now they currently have Casey Hayward, they could draft somebody. But I think that there's pretty much a strong chance that Jeff Okudah will earn one of the starting jobs at cornerback for the Atlanta Falcons. This guy could end up playing at a really high level for the Falcons, and they could end up having one of the better cornerback duos in the NFL with Big Jeffy and A.J. Terrell, or Jeff Okudah continues to play like how he did last season in Detroit, being average to maybe above average at times. But ultimately, if you're a Falcons fan, you're hoping for consistently good play out of Jeff Okudah. I don't see him crashing and burning. I don't think he's going to be absolutely terrible. Some people may say that the coaching in Detroit failed Jeff Okudah. He wasn't put in the proper scheme to succeed. Whatever you want to use as your argument for why he didn't work out in Detroit, he's getting a fresh start in Atlanta. Of course, you Falcons fans are more likely going to try to see the positive of making this move, which I think there's a lot of good to take from this trade. You're giving up a mid-round pick, which most likely you were going to use on a special teamer or maybe a guy who probably wasn't going to be a starter in this league. Jeff Okudah, if this new defensive coordinator can find a way to fit him into a scheme and can get the most out of him, I think that this would be a trade that we can look back upon at the end of the year. For if the Falcons make it to the postseason and they win this division, you could say, you know, that Jeff Okudah trade that they made way back in April, it looks very good now. That's if the Falcons win the division. If the Falcons are going to win the division, they need a big season out of their secondary. Their secondary was one of the worst in the NFL last year. They signed Jesse Bates in free agency. You still do have A.J. Terrell. You bring in Jeff Okudah, who is a low-risk, high-reward kind of acquisition. Now for Detroit, the last thing that I want to ask is this. Does this mean that Detroit is taking the cornerback at 6? I don't think so. I still think if you're Detroit, the pick is more likely going to be on the defensive line. More so, Jalen Carter, if he's on the board, I think he could be the pick. If there's another good pass rusher on the board, I think that also could be the selection. Or Detroit could trade down. Maybe they take a quarterback, try to get the potential successor for Jared Goff if they want to part ways with him. But I don't think Detroit is going to take a cornerback. They really don't need a cornerback at all. You brought in Cam Sutton. You have Emmanuel Mosley. Those guys are pretty much going to be your outside cornerbacks. And then you're going to have Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who is going to be the Swiss Army knife, who you can put in the slot, keep at safety, just move all over the defense. But the Atlanta Falcons have acquired Jeff Okudah, the former 3rd overall pick in the 2020 NFL draft, giving up a 5th round selection in the upcoming NFL draft to the Detroit Lions. Let me know what you guys think about this move down in the comment section down below. And I appreciate you guys for listening to this episode of the JT Sports Podcast. Remember to give us a 5-star review. We're available on all podcasting platforms, Apple, Google, Amazon, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from. You can find the JT Sports Podcast. Check us out. Leave us with a 5-star review. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys shortly with another episode.